Indian society is stratified on the basis of caste and class. Hindu social organization from time immemorial has expressed the feature of caste system in India, and when analyzed to the depth, it is seen that the division of society had been inevitably linked to the occupation, economic production, access to property and wealth, and history further shows that caste and class have been an influencing feature in the socio-economic and political system of the Indian society at large. So here we lay more emphasis on the caste system as it is very specific to the Indian culture, and caste is a form of stratification found among Hindus and is closely connected to the Hindu philosophy and religion. So in this unit, we'll be focusing on the evolution of caste in different periods, the theories of caste, caste among non-Hindus, and also the changes in caste and class relations in Indian society. The caste system is one of the basic features or elements of Indian society, and it is a form of stratification that which is practiced by the people, especially among the Hindus. And this caste system has its foundational basis in the Varna system. Now, Varna means color. At the same time, Varna also defines the hereditary roots of a newborn. It also signifies the classes of people. So, this Varna system basically ranked people into hierarchy. And this hierarchy that is commonly seen as the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras. And at the same time, it also had a fifth category that is untouchables. Now, this Varna system over a period of time developed into the caste system. So here, the Indian caste system is considered to be a closed system of stratification with its rigid rules and regulations to control the people belonging to a particular caste. So each caste group have their own prescribed rules and regulations, that is restrictions with regard to food choices, the rule of endogamy, etc. And there is very less mobility in the caste system, and individuals always had to practice their caste prescribed occupations. So this caste system and the history of it can be related to one of the prominent religions in India, that is Hinduism. And at the same time, over a period of time, caste has also changed various aspects of it, basically due to the Buddhist revolutions and impact of Jainism, and also due to the impact of British rule, and lately passing of various new laws by the Indian governments over a period of time. So the word caste is derived from the Spanish and Portuguese word casta, meaning lineage or race. It is also derived from the word or Latin word castus, meaning pure. And this caste is originally used to refer to a social division in Hindu society, which is based on Hindu philosophy, morals, occupations, manners, food and dress habits, and marriage and family patterns. Thus, because of all this, Ramanuja views caste as a closed social stratum that determines its members' prestige, occupation, and social relationships. And in each caste, social relationships between members of different castes are severely limited and formalized. Now, coming to the definitions of the caste, Anderson and Parker, according to them, caste is that extreme form of social class organizations in which the position of individual in the status hierarchy is determined by descent and birth. That is to say, the position of an individual in the hierarchy is determined on or by the birth itself, and that which cannot be changed. So a person gets his caste by birth. And if we look at the second definition, that is by Herbert Risley, caste is a collection of families bearing a common name, claiming a common descent from a mythical ancestor, human and divine, professing to follow the same hereditary calling, and regarded by those who are competent to give an opinion as forming a single homogeneous community. So, caste is basically a collection of groups which are hereditary nature and they have a common ancestor. So, if we further take one more definition of caste as given by Corbett, now caste is an endogamous and hereditary subdivision of an ethnic unit occupying a position of superior or inferior rank or social esteem in comparison with other such subdivisions. So basically caste is an endogamous group which have hereditary characteristics and which also has superior and inferior rankings. So various thinkers have defined the caste in different ways, and thus it becomes a difficult task to give a definite or permanent definition of caste. So the easy way to understand caste is to go through the basic elements of a caste. And so here, the first element being the repulsion. Now, repulsion is a phenomena of mutual repulsion between social groups, divisions into opposed fragments, isolation at the group levels, and mechanisms to prevent alliances and relations across the group boundaries. The rules like endogamy, the concepts of purity and pollutions, the food taboos, etc. And it is followed by hierarchy. Now, the person's status, the rights and duties are determined by the rank of the group to one a person belongs to. So that is to say, the position in the social ranking or social hierarchy determines the various activities associated with that person, and it is followed by hereditary specialization. The aspects of occupations or professions which a caste group has to practice or follow is based on hereditary aspect. That is, the caste-based occupations are passed on from generations to generations. So these three elements combined together constitute the defining properties or characteristics of caste. So in brief, caste is hereditary in nature. The traditional caste system has a hierarchy, that is social ranking, and caste groups have to practice their own occupations or caste determined occupations, and the mobility was very less in those days or ancient times. So here we'll be looking into the hierarchy, the ways in which people belonging to different caste groups were ranked or arranged and through which they had a fixed status in the social system. So here, the Brahmins occupied the top position in the hierarchy, and they were basically the priests and scholars, and their occupations was preaching, teaching, etc. And Brahmins were followed by the second group, the Kshatriyas. They were basically the warrior groups or the kings, and their duty was to protect. It is followed by Vaishya, who were basically the traders, landowners, and they involved in the economic activities in the society. This group is further followed by the Shudras, who were then the commoners or common people, peasants and other workers, laborers, etc. Now, apart from this four classification, there was another group outside the caste system. They were called as untouchables. They were outcasts, servants, scavengers, etc., and they performed various types of occupations which were considered to be unclean and polluting. So, if we further go into the hierarchy, the three groups, that is, the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, were called as Dvijas, or they had the status of twice born, that is, once by birth and secondly by the performance of the sacred Upanayana ceremony. So, this is the hierarchy which was seen in the ancient Indian society and which prescribed what one was supposed to do, and that is to say, each caste occupations were prescribed on the basis of this, and people had very less mobility or less opportunity to be mobile, and their status was more or less fixed in the society. Now, before we proceed with the theories on the origin of caste, let's look into caste and varna a bit more in detail. Now, caste and varna are two separate concepts, and caste is a developed form of varna. So, the Rig Veda, which was written in around 4000 BC, mentions two varnas, that is, Arya Varna and Dasa Varna. But however, in the same Veda, there is a description of the division of societies into three orders, that is, of priests, warriors, and commoners. And there is no mention of the fourth order, that is, the Shudras, though there are references to groups despised by the Aryans, like the Chandalas, Nishads, etc. Now, these four orders ultimately became four Varnas, and initially the Shudras were not considered as untouchables, and to Shudras belonged various groups like the peasants, laborers, servants, etc. And this Varna system was based on the division of labor, and at the same time, there were no restrictions on the matrimonial alliances or on the commensal or social relations, or even the change of membership from one Varna to another. So, as said, the division of societies into four Varnas was based on the division of labor, in which people belonging to different Varnas practiced their own occupations, like Brahmins as priests, Kshatriyas as rulers and fighters, Vaishyas as traders, and Shudras as service class people. But later on, as we move from the Vedic period to the Brahminic period, the four Varnas came to be arranged in the hierarchical order, that is, Brahmins at the top and Shudras at the bottom. So this hierarchical arrangement had something to do with the color differences. Now, Varna basically means color, and it was in this sense that the word seems to have been employed in contrasting the Arya and the Dasavarna, referring to the fair and the dark colors, respectively. So, this color connotation of the word was so strong that later on, when the classes came to be regularly described as Varnas, four different colors were assigned to those four classes, by which their members were supposed to be distinguished. So the colors associated with Brahman was white, the Kshatriyas with red, the Vaishyas yellow, and the Shudras with black. So Hutton believed that this is possibly a race differentiation, and this classification could be associated with the racial features. So here, Varna is a conceptual scheme, while caste is a description of real situation that which was taking place in the Indian society or the Hindu society. So the discrimination on the basis of hierarchy begins to take place in the later Brahminic period. So now let's look into the evolution of caste to understand how changes have taken place in the caste structure throughout various periods in Indian history. So here we'll be looking into the ancient period, followed by the medieval period, further followed by the British period, and finally the post-independence period. So when we say ancient period, it includes the Vedic period, the Brahminical period, the Mauryan and the post-Mauryan periods, and Harshavardhana periods. So here, the ancient caste system. Now there are two schools of thought with regard to the caste system in the Rigvedic period. Now here, one school holds that the broad frame of the caste system had existed even in the earliest portion of the Rigveda, and the groups, the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, were the three caste divisions which were clearly recognized in the Rigvedic society. But this view also says that the Shudra caste did not exist in this period, and the Aryans created it at the end of the Rigvedic period. On the other hand, the other school maintains that these groups, that is, the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, were not caste but were Varnas, which were not hereditary, and they were more flexible. At the same time, they also hold the view that caste system had sufficiently developed during the later Vedic period, and this system was not flexible and also had raised enough barriers. Now, as we move on to the later Vedic period, it marked the growth of religious literature, which also included the Brahmanas and the older Upanishads. So, the hierarchical system of Varnas were established more firmly during this later Vedic period. Now, this period also witnessed the growth of Brahmin privileges, which they won through the instrument of religion, and at the same time, due to the rise of big states, the power of Kshatriyas over the Vaishyas and Shudras also increased. At the same time, there were some sort of discontentment among the Kshatriyas due to their secondary position to that of the Brahmins. Now, as a result, there arose conflicts between Brahmins and Kshatriyas for claiming superiority over the other. Now, here, that is the later Vedic period, the theory of four castes came to be repeatedly mentioned in the literature of this period, and the four caste became clearly established with its rigidity. Now, further, during the Epic Age, the Brahmins took advantage of the wars among the Kshatriyas and they succeeded in organizing themselves as an exclusive class. Therefore, the beginning of the caste system was the later Vedic age and the Epic age, or the later Vedic period and the Epic period. Now, it has to be understood that the basis of social stratification prior to the later Vedic period was basically the division of labor, and further, in its original form, it was the class system rather than the caste system. But here in the later Vedic period, the racial factor, the occupational bias, the philosophy of action, and the religious concept of purity and pollution contributed to the formation of the rigid caste system. And further, during the Mauryan period, the caste system could not grow due to the liberal attitudes of the rulers such as Chandragupta Maurya, Ashoka. And Chandragupta Maurya also had a Shudra ruler, and he tried to remove various restrictions imposed by the Brahmins on the Shudras by declaring that the royal law would supersede the Dharma law. And during Ashoka's reign, animal sacrifices were prohibited and Vedic ritualism was completely ruled out. Now, after the downfall of the Mauryan dynasty, the Sunga dynasty under Pushyamitra Sunga came to power, and during this period, it marked the revival of Brahminical religion and caste system. And it was through the writings of Manusmriti and other Smritis that Vedic rites were revived, and Brahmins gave themselves privileges and at the same time imposed severe restrictions on Shudras. Now, further, the golden age of the Guptas marked the real development of the Brahmanism, which became the ethnic religion of India, and caste system also got a fresh spur. But the caste system was not so rigid in the spirit as the Shudras were allowed to become traders, artisans, and agriculturalists. However, untouchability existed in the spirit, and the untouchables were made to stay outside the main settlement or outside the village. And the caste system, with the domination of the Brahmins, continued to function in the same manner in the Harshavardhana period, and this is evident from the writings of Chinese scholar Huan Sang. Now, further, moving on to the medieval period, the medieval period includes the Rajput period and the Muslim period. Now, the Indian social system did not change, and moreover, caste system became more rigid. Now, Brahmins gave themselves more privileges and permitted flesh, wine, and women in worship. The Rajputs were loyal to their clans, and to die in the battlefield for clan's honor was esteemed as a personal triumph. Consequently, when foreign armies attacked India, each individual clan faced them singly, with disastrous results for the country. Now, as a result, a large number of castes and subcastes came up, which further resulted in the caste subdivisions among the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, and in the due course, a large number of occupational castes, originally started only as occupational guilds, came to be regarded as distinct caste or subcaste. Thus, distinct change had occurred in the social structure with regard to the multiplicity of caste and the observance of caste rules before the advent of Muslims itself. Now, during the Muslim period or the Muslim rule, India no longer remained a peaceful home for the safe pursuit of Brahmanism. That is, Islam, being a monotheistic religion, did not allow any compromise with polytheism. Thus, the Hindus and Muslims could not mix together. Since Muslims led a religious crusade upon India and tried to convert people to Islam, the Brahmins, in order to protect the Hindus from being converted, imposed many restrictions on Hindus and made the caste system more rigid. Now, Brahmins had a control over the temples, which was used not only for worship but also for political, cultural, and educational activities. And this was the reason why Brahmins succeeded in imposing their control over the Hindus. Now, the caste distinctions were more rigid, or rather, were made more rigid by declaring that Muslims and those Hindus who worked for the Muslims would be treated as barbarians. Now, further, when we come to the British period, we'll be concentrating on caste system in the pre-industrial British period and the caste system in pre-independence period. So when we speak about the caste system in the pre-industrial British period, that is during the 17th century, the East India Company secured some commercial privileges from the Mughals, and soon the Britishers were successful in conquering India, and Warren Hastings was appointed as the first Governor General of the country, that is India, and the administrative socio-economic policies of the government and some of the legislative measures taken by the British brought about changes in the religious doctrines and practices, and also in the caste structure. So, the judicial powers of the caste councils or caste panchayats were transferred to the civil and criminal courts, which affected the authority of the caste panchayat. Further, the Britishers also removed some of the disabilities of the untouchables through some social measures, which gave a further blow to the caste system. Now, all these measures were taken up by the Britishers for their own administrative convenience, and not because they desired to abolish the caste system. To mention some of the acts, such as Caste Disabilities Removal Act of 1850, the Widow Remarriage Act of 1856, and the Special Marriage Act of 1872. All these attacked the caste system. At the same time, the social reformers started reform movements like Brahma Samaj, Arya Samaj, Prarthana Samaj, Ramakrishna Mission. Now, all these attacked the caste system, and some of them also aimed at the revival of aggressive Hinduism. The Lingayat movement, started by a Brahmin in South India, also preached against the superiority of the Brahmins. It stressed on the abolition of idol worship and also giving up the caste system. However, all these attacks did not succeed in removing the rigidity of the caste system, but some of the structural features of the caste got affected by it. Then, as we move on to the caste system in pre-independence period, many of the customs related to caste continued to flourish as Britishers adopted a hands-off policy to produce planned social change, and they did very little to modify India's religious and social customs. Now, men at the top of the caste hierarchy were confirmed in their privileges and powers over the destinies of their fellows. Now, after the World War, India became more and more industrialized, which resulted in the large-scale migration from rural to urban areas. Thus, the process of urbanization took place. Now, these two factors, that is, industrialization and urbanization, played a major role for the changes that occurred in the caste system. Now, industrialization led to the growth of industries on the one side, and on the other side, it destroyed the old crafts and paved for new means to earn livelihood. It also created new transportation facilities, especially trains and buses, and these were crowded also, and all these drew millions of people of all castes, leaving aside their ceremonial purity of the castes. That is, people had to travel together, keeping aside their caste purity differences, and at the same time, taboos against some food and accepting food and water from persons of other caste also gradually started weakening when industrial workers belonging to various castes started living together in the same house, leaving their families behind in the villages. However, the impact of industrialization has not been uniform and absolute on all the salient features of the caste system. The process of industrialization did not have any effect on the marriage customs and beliefs, as they are considered as deep rooted social values. Now, further urbanization led to the growth of cities, and the developed means of transport and communication considerably changed the functioning of the caste in India. The authority of the Brahmins also came to be questioned, and referring to this, M. N. Srinivas had stated that due to the migration of Brahmins to the towns, the non-Brahmins refused to show the same respect which they showed before, and intercaste eating and drinking taboos also weakened. Further, Ghurye also accepted that the changes in the rigidities of the caste system were due to the growth of city life with its migratory population. So, the rigidities in the caste system, which developed during the later Vedic period and continued throughout the medieval period, began to decline during the British era. And now, moving on to the caste system in post independence period, that is, after independence, various factors affected the caste system, and the aspects like the merger of various states, the enactment of several laws, socio religious reforms, spread of education, growth of new and modern professions and occupations, the result of westernization, the aspects of mobility, and the growth of market economy. All these affected the caste structure. However, it also witnessed the growth of some caste organizations and certain castes consolidating their groups to secure greater social and political power also increased the feeling of casteism. Now, such feelings gave rise to intercaste conflicts in some states, and some castes, in order to gain advantage over the other caste, started building their own educational, economic, and religious institutions through which they could uphold their positions. However, on the other side, the caste system in post independence period focuses or brings or highlights a lot about the scheduled caste and the conditions of scheduled castes have been improved with educational and employment opportunities through the reservation policy of the government and also with the removal of untouchability and other restrictions that were imposed upon the lower caste since ancient times. So, this is how the caste system evolved over a period of time. But it doesn't mean that the post independence period every caste has equal opportunities because even now we could see the caste based discriminations happening throughout our country, honor killings taking place in the name of caste, practice of untouchability, all these things still exist in India. Moving on to the theories on the origin of caste. Now, various scholars, various theorists have propounded different theories on the origin of caste, and these theories give us an insight what could have been probably the origin of caste. And here we'll be looking into the traditional theory of caste, which has two versions, the mythical and the metaphysical versions, followed by the Brahmanical theory, and then the racial theory. Further, the theory of mana will also be looking into Ghurye and his theory of caste, followed by the Louis Dumont's theory of caste and its origin. The traditional theory of caste believes that caste system was established on the basis of divine ordinance. And as said before, the traditional theory has two versions. The first one, mythical version, and the second one, metaphysical version. Now, when we look into the mythical version, the mythical version regards four varnas as four castes, and it believes that these four varnas or caste emerged from the different parts of Brahma's body, and the Brahmins were born out of his mouth, the Kshatriyas from his arms, the Vaishyas from his thighs or stomach, and the Shudras from his feet. And on the basis of this, or on the basis of the position of birth, the caste occupation of different groups were determined. And this theory considers caste as a naturally determined organization of social functions and explains that membership of an individual in a particular caste was in terms of the karma doctrine and the dharma doctrine. And according to the karma doctrine, a man is born in a particular caste because of his actions performed in his previous incarnation, and that if he had performed better actions, he would have been born in a higher caste. And according to the Dharma doctrine, a man who accepts and lives according to the Dharma is rewarded, while the violation of Dharma is punished. That is to say, if a man observes the rules of a Dharma, he will be born in his next birth in a higher caste, and if a man violates the Dharma, he would be born in a lower caste. And when we move on to the metaphysical version, now the metaphysical version explains the hierarchy and fixed occupation of the caste. That is to say, each caste had a separate function and which was determined by the nature and qualities of the caste members. The nature comprised of two sets, that is, the lineage and individual qualities. The lineage are hereditary in nature, while the individual qualities are specifically one's own qualities. So here, the lineage qualities determined the ascriptive nature of the caste and entitled him to a particular status in the caste. This was a hereditary membership of the caste system, that is, the lineage. And at the same time, the occupations were fixed according to the caste that one belonged. And here, further, we deal with two types of functions, the ordinary functions and the extraordinary functions. So according to the metaphysical version, Brahmins were engaged in cultural religious functions, Kshatriyas in military administrations, Vaishyas in commercial economic functions, and finally the Shudras were engaged in ordinary functions. That is to say, the top three in the hierarchy performed certain extraordinary functions, while the functions or the activities performed by Shudras were considered as ordinary functions. And this was because it was believed that the first three varnas or caste had undergone training in previous births, and they were given the status of Dvijas, or they had the right to be called as Dvijas, whereas Shudras did not have these sort of training in their previous births, and they did not get the status of Dvijas or twice borns. So here, the rigidity on the basis of the notions of the twice born status, etc., is clearly visible, and this hierarchy of the caste differentiated different groups of people on the basis of the kinds of occupations that which were allotted to them, and also on the basis of the individual qualities and lineages. So Dvijas basically once by birth and second by the performance of Upanayana ceremony. Now this Dvija status was denied to the fourth Varna or Shudras, whereas the top three Varnas enjoyed this twice born status on the basis of the activities that which they perform. That is, when we take into Louis Dumont's caste, it is more like the pure and impure activities which were performed by the individuals. The Brahmanical theory of caste. Now, according to Abbe Du Bois, the caste system originated and developed in India because of the Brahmins. Now, Brahmins imposed several social restrictions on non-Brahmins, especially on the Shudras, to preserve their purity, and they further gave themselves a higher status in the Brahmanas and in other books, and declared all others as inferior to them. And here, Shudras were classified as most inferior than anyone else. And thus, it signifies the role of Brahmins as vital in the origin of caste system in India. And more importantly, the restrictions on marriage, acceptance of food, restrictions on occupational mobility, etc., came to be the basic characteristics of each caste group. And he further says that caste in India is a Brahminic child of the Indo-Aryan culture, and thus, according to this theory of caste, the caste system was created by the Brahmins to maintain their superiority in the society. Now, this theory is also backed by G.S. Ghurye, who further says or stresses on the roles of Brahmins in the creation of caste. Now, let's look into the racial theory as propounded by Herbert Risley. Now, according to Herbert Risley, the clash of cultures and contact of races crystallized the caste in India. That is, the migrant Aryans had their own ideas of ceremonial purity, and they considered the original inhabitants of this land as inferior to them. Moreover, the Aryans were essentially patrilineal in nature, while the local population, or the original inhabitants whom they conquered, were matrilineal. And here, the Aryans married the daughters of the aboriginals or the original inhabitants of the land, and at the same time refused to give their daughters to the aborigines. Now, The children of such marriages had to be assigned the lowest position in the society and were called chandalas. Thus, the origin of half-breed groups, as well as the feeling of racial superiority, ultimately became responsible for the origin of the caste system in India. So basically, the migrant Aryan groups contributed to the development of caste system in India with their complex idea of ceremonial purity, and also the marital bonds which led to the creation of groups who were considered to be the untouchables in Indian society. The next theory is the theory of mana, propounded by Hutton. So, according to Hutton, mana is a mysterious impersonal power attached to the individuals, objects, and even places. So, wherever the belief in mana prevailed, a corresponding belief in the value of taboo as protective measure was also seen. Taboos were imposed on commensality, intermarriages, social interaction to save the members of one tribe from the mana of other tribes. The restrictions were also imposed on sharing of food with others, having contact with others, as it was believed that these foods and contact with others may be infected with the dangerous soul matters of strangers. Thus, the belief in mana ultimately created the caste system in Indian society. So, this belief in the mysterious power called mana led people to impose certain restrictions with regard to various social activities in the society, which eventually contributed to the development of caste system. The next theory is the theory on caste by G.S. Ghurye. Now you are familiar with G.S. Ghurye as you have already studied the Indological perspective and also certain aspects of caste there. So here G.S. Ghurye in his book Caste and Race in India says that the Indo-Aryans belonged to the larger Indo-European stock that dispersed from its homeland after 5000 BC, and this branch entered India about 2500 BC, carrying with it the early Vedic religion, and further, the Brahminic variety of the Indo-Aryan civilization developed later in the Gangetic plain along with the caste system. Further, Ghurye says that or agrees with Risley's racial classification of the caste. And Ghurye says that caste derived from the Varna classification of the early Vedic age, which referred to the skin color and that differentiated the Aryas and the Dasas. That is, differentiation on the basis of color, basically the Arya Varna and Dasa Varna. Aryavarna refers to the fairer complexion and Dasavarna refers to the dark. So, further, the caste system originated as an endogamous institution, as the Indo-Aryan Brahmins attempted to maintain their purity by keeping themselves apart from the local population. So here, these Aryans migrated towards India or reached India about 2000 BC, and they brought in an institution that was closely related to the caste. And this system of caste has often been described in Sanskrit literatures. And this could, or this is, the work of either the Aryans or the Aryan inspired aborigines. Because in these works we see the moral guides and legislatures of the immigrant Aryans and the aspects how they try to keep their blood free from any intermixture with the lower classes or caste, that is to say, the rule of endogamy, which restricted people marrying outside one's own caste. Now, here, the invading Aryans who entered India came with three exclusive classes and absorbed the indigenous inhabitants who accepted the overlordship of the Indo-Aryans by being at the lowest level, that of Shudras. Now, the Indo-Aryans practiced some amount of ritual exclusivity, but also displayed a tolerance of assimilating diverse people. Now, this mechanism for assimilation resulted in the development of caste. So, the caste was maintained by endogamy and hypergamy, and thus there is a correspondence between the caste and the physical type or even race. Now, moving further, we'll be looking into the characteristics of caste as given by G.S. Ghurye. Now, the first one is the segmental division of society. Now, here, under caste system, society was divided into several social groups called caste. Additionally, there were multiple divisions and subdivisions of the caste system, and the membership was ascribed in nature, that is, it was based on the birth and it flowed from generation to generation. So the members of every division had fixed status, roles, and tasks. There were also a set of moral ethics, obligations, and justification value behind these roles. Hence, each caste or even subcaste had its own traditional social status, occupations, customs, rules, and regulations. This is followed by hierarchy. Now, theoretically, Brahmins occupied the top position and Shudras occupied the bottom position. So the caste can be graded and arranged into a hierarchy on the basis of their social precedence. And this hierarchy determined the caste norms. And the hierarchy present in the caste system is also reflected in the division of labor in society. Like, for example, the Brahmins perform the occupations of preaching, teaching, while the Shudras perform the occupations that of servicing the groups or even performing other works like manual scavenging, etc. And it is followed by restrictions on feeding and social intercourse. So various rules had been imposed upon caste groups by the upper caste, and restrictions on feeding and social intercourse were one among them. So basically, there were two types of food, that is, kacha food and paka food, and restrictions were imposed upon the food, like caste groups from whom twice born caste people can accept kacha food or paka food, and caste groups from whom the twice born caste people can accept water but no food, etc. All such restrictions were imposed upon different caste groups, and at the same time, the distance that which had to be maintained while interacting with a higher caste were also prescribed, and also in some states in Indian society there were restrictions for the movement of lower caste people in the early hours, that is during the sunrise and during the sunset, because it was believed that the mere shadows of these lower caste people would pollute the upper caste people. And this is followed by civil and religious disabilities and privileges. So, this reflects the rigidity of the caste system. And in a caste society, there are unequal distribution of disabilities and privileges among its members. While the higher caste people enjoy all the privileges, the lower caste people suffer from various types of disabilities. Like the untouchables are not allowed to draw water from the public wells, they are not allowed to enter temples, they are denied educational rights, etc. So they suffered from various disabilities. The next characteristics is lack of unrestricted choice of occupation. So the occupations in the caste system are fixed by heredity, and generally members are not allowed to change their traditional occupations. So because of this, the higher caste members maintain their supremacy in their jobs, and they do not allow other caste groups to join the same occupations. So basically the occupations are caste based. And the last one is restrictions on marriage or the rule of endogamy. Now, endogamy rule says that every caste member should marry within one's own group, and disobeying the caste endogamy rule resulted in outcasting of the caste members, and also they were treated very rudely by the upper caste people or their own caste group people. So, disobeying the rule of endogamy was treated as a crime. The next one is Louis Dumont's interpretation of caste. Now, Louis Dumont, in his Homo hierarchus, saw caste as two opposing categories or two opposing conceptual categories, that of purity and pollution. And he considered these aspects of purity and pollution as the organizing principle of the caste structure and hierarchy. And according to Dumont, these unique core principles of caste hierarchy are observed in scriptural formulation as well as in the everyday life of Hindus. And he also says that the hierarchy, which is inclusive of purity and pollution, prevailed all over the Hindu population. And for Dumont, the dominant principle of Hindu caste system was hierarchy. And of course, this hierarchy was religious in nature and not of political. And other key principles, as said, associated with are purity and impurity, or purity and pollution. And these are also religious in nature. And thus he says that hierarchy and the aspects of purity and pollution are interrelated. And thus he says that Indian caste system is not individualistic in nature, but it emphasizes its totality. And further, the most important feature of the Varna writings were the superior status of the Brahman over the Kshatriyas. And on the basis of the Brahmins' monopoly of the offering of sacrifices, they enjoyed a higher and better privilege than all other castes in the hierarchy. So here, the Brahmins and Kshatriyas were interdependent and superior to the other two Varnas, and it was a matter of an absolute distinction between priesthood and royalty. That is, the Brahmin performs sacrifices but never ruled, whereas the Kshatriya ruled but never performed sacrifices. But at the same time, the Kshatriyas are dependent upon and are inferior to the Brahmin. Now, Dumont indicated that the distinction in the dominant Indian tradition between priest and king is different from those societies in which the king is also the highest priest, like, for example, ancient Egypt. And further, Dumont associated man's purpose in life, for instance, as described in the ancient Hindu law books, the Dharma Shastras, with the Varnas. So there are three human goals: Dharma, Artha, and Kama, that is, duty, profit, and pleasure. And the analogy with the hierarchy of Varna is apparent. Dharma corresponds to the Brahmin or priest, Artha to the king or Kshatriya, and the temporal power, and Kama to others. While Brahmin counselors knew the Dharma, used to advise the king, and it was the duty of the king to protect the people in exchange for grain payment. Now, Dumont defined Dharma as the holistic idea of the order. Thus, each of the caste had their own duties or occupations, and moreover, they were interdependent upon each other. To add few more theories of caste, we'll be looking into the occupational theory as propounded by Nesfield. Now, Nesfield believed that the origin of caste had nothing to do with the racial affinity, but it was mainly due to the functions or occupations. That is, the skill of occupation was passed on hereditarily from generation to generation, and because of practicing the same occupation over a period of time, occupational guilds came into existence, which later on came to be known as caste. And thus, the Brahmins were classified with the highest status. That is, because the Brahmins were specialized in the occupations of sacrifice, rituals, hymns, etc. And since sacrifices were very important in the social life of the people, Brahmins became the most important and respected people in the society. Likewise, every occupation became hereditary, and through this came into existence the system of caste. Another theory is Kedkar's theory. Now, Kedkar believed that the origin of caste was from early tribes and the psychological prejudicial tendencies of human beings. So Kedkar here says that there were numerous tribes living in different parts of India, and many of these tribes were in struggle with each other on issues like boundaries, kidnapping a girl from other tribe, etc. Now, because of such conflicts, people avoided other tribes in marriage and social relations, and confined social interaction in all respects to members of their own tribe. Thus, the caste originated from the tribes, and He further says that the psychology of endogamy came to be practiced because of three factors. One, due to the feelings of sympathy and affection for the members of one's own group. Secondly, to maintain blood purity. And thirdly, social adjustment. And the aspects of superiority and inferiority were the cause or the direct result of endogamy. And such feelings brought the social restrictions and clear-cut differentiations of the peoples into different groups and different castes. So far, we have focused on different theories on the origin of caste, and we also spoke a bit about the Varna system. Here, we'll be analyzing if the caste and class concepts are opposite to each other in Indian society, or are they two different concepts in itself? Now, you know that caste is an ascribed status. It is a status which one gets by birth, and caste is permanent in nature. An individual cannot change it. And traditionally, caste was more rigid kind of system with its own restrictions in the name of endogamy, also in the food habits, also various disabilities imposed upon the lower caste by the upper caste. So it was a kind of closed system, whereas class, on the other hand, is an achieved status, the status that an individual achieves because of his progress. It could be in education, it could be in employment, etc. And thus, it is also an open system where there are opportunities for individuals to be mobile, change their status from one social position to another over a period of time, etc. So here, class is an open system, caste is a closed system. But when we look at Indian society, we have class within caste. Now, that is to say, take for example, certain changes or developments that which have taken place in Indian society. For example, Green Revolution. Now, Green Revolution did not change the life of entire farmer group in the country, but rather this change was restricted to few farmers. Now, what happened here is because of this Green Revolution, there emerged classes within caste. That is to say, within a caste group, some farmers benefited out of the Green Revolution while others did not. So, those farmers who benefited out of the Green Revolution became a class within itself. So, within that caste group, there are different classifications, that is, the subcaste or other caste. And it is not necessary that all the caste members are rich or have improved status, etc. It could vary from individuals to individual. Thus, we have class within the caste. Say now, caste A. In that there are about 100 people, and in that about 50 have improved their life status and are in a well-to-do background. So now this 50 people becomes one class and the other 50 becomes another class. But still they are in the cover of the caste. So the caste and classes are part of Indian society, but with caste having an upper hand. So here, when we say caste, the castes basically follow the Dharma Shastras, and it was a traditional practice also. But with the advent of Industrial Revolution and the coming of the East India Company towards India, that is, East India Company came to India, it was followed with Industrial Revolution. Now, these scenarios brought about changes in the economic structure of Indian society. But at the same time, what has to be understood here is the caste sentiments remained or got stronger. That is to say, traditionally, those higher caste groups who had the privileges once again became privileged in the capitalist society. They owned the means of production, whereas those categories of people who were not privileged here in the capitalistic society became workers. At the same time, various aspects remain with those people who were traditionally upper caste. For example, in Indian society, we can observe several institutions or caste-based institutions or organizations run by particular caste groups in the country. And at the same time, various aspects related with it, that is, appointment of individuals for vacant positions, etc., was according to the caste in most of the cases. So, even though we speak about the class system, the caste sentiments are still stronger within individuals and in the entire country. Now let's look into the changes in caste and class relations in Indian society. Now, according to the Marxist thinkers, there are two classes in Indian society, that is, of big landlords and agricultural laborers. So, along with this, another view is that class differentiation are in terms of agricultural laborers, poor peasants, middle peasants, rich peasants, landlords, etc. And these class systems existed in India even in the past, and it also continues to exist even today. So here the relationship is that of haves and have-nots. The landlords are the haves and agricultural laborers are the have-nots who work for survival. Now another classification according to V.M. Dandekar is the pre-capitalist workforce, which consists of cultivators, agricultural laborers, and household industries, and followed by independent workers in capitalist society, and then the employees, the people who work, followed by the white collar employees and blue collar employees. So, white collar refers to the professional workers, administrative work, etc., while blue collar refers to those related to manual works, or manual workers in industry, etc. So, this is another classification of class relations in Indian society. But in simple sense, classes in India can be classified as the agrarian classes, followed by the industrial classes, the professional classes, the business classes. Now, here, agrarian classes refers to those people who practice agriculture and are involved in agricultural related activities. Industrial classes are those capitalists, the workers in industrial sectors, etc.
Professional class are those involved in professional jobs, white collar jobs, and business, of course, industrialist, capitalist, all those things. Now, the caste system is a form of stratification. Just like that, class system in India is also a form of stratification. Now, here, although there are different classes within different sectors, all these classes do not have equal opportunities or equal access. Now, like I said, within an agrarian class, you can further subdivide the classes, like those who are having a better quality of life and those who do not have a better standard of life. Like industrial classes, those workers who have some sort of quality income and others who do not have. And likewise, you can go on classifying the classes in Indian society. So it is another criteria wherein you stratify the groups of people, because in India you find a lot of people who are working in the unorganized sector than organized sector. So people in organized sector have some sort of uh, income flow, while those in unorganized sector do not have a continuous income flow, and most of the time they are exploited. So though caste system and its rigidity came to decline over the years because of various interferences like British rule, the passing of laws, etc., the class system in India has not gone much changes because the life and conditions of people tend to remain the same, more or less the same. The mobility is also not that visible. And today you can see the conditions of the daily wage earners, their life, their miseries, etc. So, here, the classes emerging out of the higher caste, they have better opportunities and they are better placed to exploit the various conditions in the society because of their traditionally higher status. They also tend to be highly regarded in the new class system. That is, it gives them easy opportunity to exploit the opportunities. And classes belonging to weaker sections. Now, classes coming out of weaker sections once again tend to be exploited. That is, they tend to remain in low earning jobs or performing manual works, etc. Not generalizing, but many of the people who were traditionally in the lower status continue to be in the lower classes, wherein they resort to manual works. Like you can find manual scavengers even today. So this traditional caste system has a role to play in determining the higher classes or weaker classes in Indian society. And these classes coming out of the weaker sections have less opportunities to exploit the available sources. It could also be because of lack of literacy. The dominant caste also leads to the dominant class structure. Now, like M.N. Srinivas's concept of dominant caste, wherein he says the ownership of land as a criteria, the strength, that is the numerical strength of the population, etc. All these comes under criteria of dominant caste, and this also plays a role in a dominant caste becoming a dominant class in the society. So now, if a person has land ownership, he has good education, he has a high status in the society, all these contributes to the development of same respect or positions within the society. So it directly contributes to a group of class who become owners of certain things, and they also get respected in the society because of the virtue of their dominant positions. Now, the caste ideology tends to be part of class ideology also, because no matter what we say that we have progressed, still within every class structure, the caste sentiments are stronger. So you say people belonging to the workers' union, or people working in industry belong to a working union, but when the matter of caste comes, the union is divided. At the same time, people who are part of different associations, when the question of the caste comes, the association could break because people are more sentimental about their caste and their status rather than the common welfare of the people. And finally, it could be said that few thinkers say that castes have changed to classes, or castes are emerging to classes. So this is not true because castes have remained caste and classes have remained class. So there is no mixture of both these classifications, because when we apply the caste and class system, the aspects of caste are related to the classes, but they have not changed, or they have not become one unit, because in India, the class system works on the idea of caste ideology, whereas in the Western society, the class system is based on the achieved statuses or achieved aspects. In India, even though there is achieved status associated with the class, but the aspects of caste ideology comes into the scenario. For example, if a lower caste person has achieved something good, highly appreciable, people sometimes come in that it's because he has certain caste reservations, etc. So even when one improves or betters one's social position, the stigma of caste gets along with it. So there is no complete departure from the caste system in Indian society. If there was complete departure from the caste system, then classes would have been accepted as they are on the basis of their achievement and success. But here, every achievement, every success gets a caste stigma attached to it. Now, in the evolution of the caste system, you saw how caste emerged and established itself in different periods. Now, in ancient India, caste had a favorable environment and it had its rigid rules. But as moving forward towards the modern period, the caste lost its significance or glory that which it once possessed. But then again, later in the Gupta period, the caste regained its significance in Indian society. So it could be said that caste had its own significant role in Indian society since ancient times. But then, with the arrival of British and passing of various laws after independence, the rigidity and the favorable environment for caste also reduced. So, here we'll be looking into the changes that which have taken place in the caste system. The first one, the trends of intercaste marriages. Now, traditionally, caste was an endogamous unit wherein the caste members were required to marry within their own groups. But because of the impact of industrialization, westernization, urbanization, and intermixing of people,
migrations, etc., the aspects of intercaste marriages gained its prominence. At the same time, the rule of endogamy also began to decline. But this doesn't mean that intercaste marriages are widely accepted even in today's society. There are cases where honor killings happen in the name of caste. But comparing to the rigidity that which was found in ancient times, in today's times, the caste has become a little bit lenient in terms of the rule of endogamy. So you can find intercaste marriages taking place in Indian society. Now, another challenge was the orthodox structure of Hindu society. So the caste system, as it changed or evolved over a period of time, it also started questioning the orthodox structure of the Hindu social system, and various aspects like that of purity and pollution came to be questioned. The practice of sati came to be questioned. The practice of untouchability came to be questioned, and all these were changed by various social reformers at different points of time. The Sati Act, which involved Raja Ram Mohan Roy, the women's education, Jyotiba Phule, all these brought about changes towards the rigid orthodox structure of the Hindu caste system. And then food habits. So traditionally, people were associated with the kind of food habits they had. Like, for example, uh, the upper caste practiced a pure vegetarian diet food habits, while the lower caste consumed non-vegetarian foods, etc. So the concept of purity and pollution were also associated with the food habits. But today, this aspect is declining. That is, people accept the different food habits of the people, and there is no stigma attached to the idea of non-vegetarian and impurity. So there are changes taking place within the food habit, food styles, but in recent few times there are certain conflicts which comes when we question the freedom of food choices of the people. Some people believe that the consumption of beef is a prohibited thing, so there are clashes happening with regard to that. Otherwise, more or less, there have been certain changes, basically with the aspect of purity and impurity related to the food habits. And then occupational changes. Now, traditionally, caste system had a monopoly on the occupations, and caste members were not allowed to change their occupations. That is, they had to follow or practice their ancestral occupations, which were passed on a hereditary basis. So there was very little scope for social as well as economic mobility. But over the period after the British, after independence, this aspect changed, and basically because of industrialization and urbanization. Now, this industrialization brought about far-reaching changes in the economic structure of Indian society. That is, small-scale industries lost its market in competition with the mission-made goods. So all this made people to migrate to intermix with each other and look for survival. So thus, every caste group had to change their occupations for survival. And likewise, occupational mobility also took place. So today we can find people from different caste groups performing different occupations, not just their hereditary occupations or caste-based occupations. So today that rule that a son of a barber should be a barber, a son of a carpenter should be a carpenter, etc., has lost its importance. And today, the system is wide open and anyone can practice anything if they are qualified for it.
and it's followed by the aspects of equality. Now, this concept of equality is quite complicated because in papers, that is, in constitutional laws, etc., we speak about equality. But in practice, how far is it true? Because the aspect of untouchability, when we take it, according to the constitutional provisions, untouchability is banned. It's an offense. But still, today in Indian society, we can find the aspects of untouchability. But then, if we compare to the ancient society or traditional society to the present society, those aspects of discriminations, ill treatment, etc., have changed to a great extent, but it has not completely gone. But we can say there is somewhat equality of status accorded to individual in Indian society today as compared to the traditional societies. So changes are taking place, but at the same time, changes are not universally taking place in all Indian societies. That is, different states, we can find different examples of ill treatment taking place, unequal practices, etc. So it is there, but at the same time, it is also changed. And finally, the improvement in the position of the lower caste categories. That is, traditionally they were denied economic mobility, they were denied social status, they were outcasted, they were suffering from various disabilities. But with independence and with the British advent, things started changing for them, and they started living a better life compared to their previous ways of life. So here, the lower caste people also got access to education, good facilities. They also improved their status. Today, you can find a many group of people who are well settled, well established in their life. So that is a good sign in the caste system. But when we all say these things, we cannot generalize these things. That is, just because a few sections from the lower caste people have qualified themselves to higher positions, it doesn't mean that the life of all the lower caste people have improved or it is bettered. No, because even today we can find many of the lower caste people working as manual scavengers and the caste-based discriminations prevailing in various North Indian states. And of course, we can also find honor killings in our own South Indian states. But then, overall, when we look, the traditional rigidity of the caste system has changed over a period of time. Now, when we say that the system of caste has changed and the rigidity of the caste system is declining, all these things, there has to be certain factors which were responsible in bringing about these changes in the caste system. So here we'll be looking into the factors which contributed for changes in the caste system, and importantly, the first one is Western education. Now, the arrival of the Christian missionaries and the East India Company also brought about changes in the education system in our country. Now, traditionally, Indian education was based on religious values, and moreover, these religious based education was open only for the upper caste. But the missionaries and East India Company kept open the system of education to all, irrespective of caste, gender, etc. And at the same time, the ideas of West, that is, rationality, scientific education, began to touch Indian society. And because of this reason, various learned Indians, that is, Indians who had Western thoughts, Western rationality, who practiced or who emphasized on the ideas of liberty, equality, fraternity, etc., started questioning various existing practices in Indian society. And they also fought against the practices of untouchability, the practices of sati, the practice of child marriage, the status of women, etc. Now, all these led to changes taking place within the structure of caste system. It is followed by the spread of literacy. Now, when education is kept open for all, definitely there is spread of literacy. And when there is literacy, people generally become aware of the uh, suppression that is taking place or the exploitation that they are going through. Now, this results in class consciousness and, in turn, a revolt by the suppressed against the oppressors. So, spread of literacy helped or made the processes of transferring informations to the individuals more ease, and thus the various aspects of equality, various aspects of equal opportunities, equal access to various privileges, etc., came to be spoken about and demanded for. So, this is also another factor. And industrialization and urbanization. Now, as said before, industrialization had an hard impact on the small scale industry of Indian society. At the same time, it also destroyed various economic activities that were prevailing in Indian society. Now, people lost jobs, and because of which they had to migrate towards these industrialized urban regions. Now, when these migrations took place, the aspect of individuals were survival. They were looking for a livelihood. And because of this, people willingly or unwillingly had to give up their caste based biases, rigidity, etc. Because if they still stuck up with the caste norms, then they wouldn't survive. So, the effects of industrialization and urbanization also led to the declining rigidity and the changes that happen in the caste system. Now, urbanization is, of course, where people migrate towards industrialized areas and start living there, cooperating with each other for survival. Now, means of communication. Now, development of various technologies led to diffusion of knowledge, diffusion of ideas, diffusion of thoughts, etc., towards different countries. Now, when we say diffusion, the arrival of different rulers at different times or different periods towards India led to a mixture of different cultures within the subcontinent. Now, here, these processes, that is, diffusion of ideas, diffusion of values, brought an end to geographical isolation that which was prevalent in India. And because of this, various customs, traditions, which were specific to a certain group or a certain caste, began to change, and universal values like equality started gaining importance in Indian society. Now, at the same time, the West, impact of the West in aspects of cultures, values, food habits, celebrations, etc., all led to intermixing of people irrespective of their caste. Now, this, in one way or the other, contributed to changes within the caste structure. Now, because of this development of communication, it became impossible to segregate people on the basis of caste because there was spread of rationality, there was spread of various aspects, various revolutions that which took place outside the country in protecting the rights of humans. Now, as a result of this, that is, as a result of westernization, a new class also got created in Indian society. Now, so gradually, the rigidity of the caste system declined, but at the same time, caste still has an important role in Indian society. It has not completely gone from Indian society. A freedom struggle, political consciousness. Now, freedom struggle revolved around the ideas of values of equality, freedom, and it was an attempt to do away with the exploitation of man. So basically, when we look at this freedom struggle and Indian society or political consciousness, it has to be understood that on the one side, the people from the lower caste were fighting for their rights, fighting against exploitations by the upper caste. But on the other side, the whole of India were fighting against the colonial rule. That is, the whole of India wanted to be liberated from the clutches of the East India Company. At the same time, on the other hand, the lower caste also wanted to liberate themselves from the exploitative characters of these upper caste as well as the East India Company. So you can divide this struggle in two ways. So here the idea was same, to liberate one from the clutches of the other. That is basically because it was exploitative in nature. Now, here, the consciousness of the people that East India Company were exploitative and they wanted freedom led to development of class consciousness. Now, when that was achieved, or that could lead to an achievement, on the other side, the people of the lower caste also developed a class consciousness that they can attain a better position, better status, or equal opportunities by revolting against the oppressors. So that is, you have great names like Dr. Ambedkar who said, educate, educate, organize. Now, here the role of education, the spread of literacy also come into the scenario. So, all these things made people realize or contributed to the emergence of class consciousness, which resulted in the revolt against the exploitative nature of the caste system. So here, though at that time it was about liberating oneself from the rigidity of the caste norms, today the caste has another role, the caste politics which is happening in the country. So we call ourselves as educated, literated, etc. But people still are sentimental about their caste, and this becomes a tool at the hands of the politicians who use this caste as a means to garner the votes of the people. And people have the tendency of choosing their own caste representative. So, caste once again finds its way into the Indian society or in the Indian social system. And further moving on with the social movements. Now, various social reform movements took place in Indian society to liberate the people, not just the lower caste, but also women, and also to help curb the child marriages, the practice of sati, the practice of sacrifices, the practice of superstitious rituals, etc. So likewise, we have Brahma Samaj, Arya Samaj, Prarthana Samaj. We have Jyotiba Phule who uh, fought for the rights of education, who promoted educations amongst all, and especially women. And then we have Periyar in the south who fought against caste atrocities taking place. We have Sri Narayan Guru, who preached the doctrine of one caste, one religion, one God for mankind, and then a disciple of his later changed this to no religion, no caste, no God for mankind. So all these aspects led to various changes taking place within the structure. Now, when we speak about such things, the aspects of abolition of untouchability later on by the law also contributed towards the removal of various disabilities that was imposed upon the others. Now, likewise, we can find various social reform movements that which took place in India, targeting the exploitative practices, targeting uh, the atrocities committed against the lower caste untouchables. Now, for example, the Brahma Samaj and Mohan Roy. Now, he believed that both men and women enjoyed certain rights and freedoms, and his main preoccupation was to get or to how to get rid of the Hindu religion of both image worship, sacrificial rites, and other meaningless rituals. And he also condemns the priestly class for encouraging these practices. And he was of the opinion that all the principal ancient texts of Hindus preached monotheism or worship of one god. And thus he started questioning various practices, blind rituals or meaningless rituals, and he stood against the superstitious aspects that which were prevailing in Indian society. And he was also opposed to the caste system, and as a humanist, he wrote and talked against the caste system. The Prarthana Samaj and Justice Runare, here they were against the rigidity and irrational practices associated with the caste system as well as religion. So basically, he was a rationalist, and he fought towards bringing about social reforms. And with this, he encouraged intercaste dinings, intercaste marriages, widow remarriage, and stressed a lot and worked a lot for the improvement of women and depressed classes status. So he was also the founder of Widow Remarriage Association and Deccan Education Society. And like this way, various reformers brought about various changes in the caste structure, and all these led to know bringing about a change in the rigidity of the caste system altogether. Moving on with the new laws as a factor of or factor responsible for change. Now, the passing of the constitution and enactment of various laws like Article 14 equality before law, Article 15 prohibition of discrimination on grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth, Article 16 equality of opportunity in matters of public employment, Article 17 especially the abolition of untouchability, and Article 19 protection of rights regarding freedom of speech, etc. Article 21 protection of life and personal liberty, and Article 23 prohibition of human trafficking and forced labor. Article 24, prohibition of employment of children. Article 43, living wage, etc. for workers. Article 44, uniform civil code for the citizens. Article 45, provision for free and compulsory education for children. Article 46, promotion of educational and economic interest of the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, and other weaker sections of the society. And Article 51A, fundamental duties, that is to promote harmony, spirit of brotherhood, and also to renounce practices derogatory to the dignity of women, etc. Followed by Article 243D, reservation of seats, that is reservation of seats for scheduled caste, scheduled tribes in Panchayat, and Article 332, reservation of seats for scheduled caste and scheduled tribes in legislative assemblies of the states, and further Article 334, reservation of seats and special representations in the houses of the people and the legislative assemblies, and Article 335, claims of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes to service and post to be given consideration. Now, all these laws contributed to a little more faster changes that which took place in the caste structure. But even though there are laws, the exploitative nature of caste has still not gone completely. So when we speak about caste in the 21st century, we'll come to know how caste is still going strong in Indian society. So after studying various aspects of caste, like evolution of caste, various theories on the origin of the caste system, uh, the changes that which took place in the caste, the factors responsible for these changes. Now let's look into the aspects of merits and demerits. Now, caste is not completely about demerits, it has certain merits also. Now, when we say the merits of the caste system, one way it helped in the continuity of Hindu life on the basis of religious aspects, like the values of worship, respect, etc., were transferred or transmitted from generations to generations, and these values, that is, belief in God, religious texts, continue to exist even today. So, this was partly because of the caste system. And then the aspects of occupation or occupational monopoly. Now, what happened in Indian society was that the occupations was hereditary in nature, and the various aspects of each occupation was passed on from the father to his son and so on. So here, this occupational monopoly resulted in less of competitions, and which in turn gave a sufficient way to fulfill their needs or to satisfy the basic needs of uh, their daily lives. And because each caste had their own occupations, the occupational pattern was determined in the society. That is what had to do, but it is not completely positive in the sense it restricted the mobility, because one cannot restrict one's choice of occupations, but in one way or the other, the occupational monopoly contributed to less competition in the society. And already said, the continuity of customs and traditions, values, good values, the aspects of solidarity within the caste group or caste members could also lead to the aspects of solidarity in the larger group, and the aspects of expressing sorrow, happiness, being part of funeral rites, festivals, etc., continued because of these caste system, partially, not completely though. So those are certain merits, and when we speak of demerits, caste is definitely a barrier to social progress because it restricted, or it still restricts, individuals' freedom, freedom of choice, freedom of practice, etc. Now, if we take one example, uh, Durkheim, in his Solidarity, says that the division of labor was to give freedom, or to give more freedom to the individual. And when we apply this to the caste system here, the division of labor denied the freedom to an individual, and the rigidity of the caste system determined the occupation on the basis of ascribed status. And thus, there was no role of achieved status in the rigid caste system. So, here, because of this rigidity, the social progress could not take place, and the caste system did not help in transition of people to a better social position, and definitely it thwarts the political unity. Now, as people are more sentimental about caste, it becomes difficult to unite the Indian population under one whole system, because every caste has its own practices, and every caste has its own significance. So people have become so much attached to it that they are not ready to give up the caste aspect. And when someone takes up the caste issue, they become more protective about their caste and fight for their caste rights, etc. So it thwarts the political unity, and it justified, or justifies, antisocial conduct, that is, ill treatment of people, uh, the meaningless punishments accorded to the people in the name of religion, in the name of caste, the meaningless distance that which were prescribed to be maintained while interacting with the upper caste people, the practice of untouchability, all these are justified by the caste system. And it is also responsible for the low status of women. Manusmriti, for example. So women had secondary status, and they had very little role in the family aspects as well as other economic aspects. And the dignity of women was also, questioned. And various sorts of ill treatments, like widows were not allowed to remarry, the child marriage, and prostitution, etc., all were responsible for, or even the aspects of the Devdasi system also originated because of the caste. And more importantly, it is also responsible for the low status and unjust treatment of lower caste people. That is, it was because of the caste there was a hierarchy which divided people on the basis of their birth, on the basis of their occupation, and restricted their movements. And the rule of endogamy also enforced, uh, or restricted, that intercaste marriages were not permitted. And the Manu also did not appreciate these intercaste marriages and intercaste dinings, etc. So all these contributed to declining status of not just individuals or lower caste people, but also the entire social outlook.
So, after learning so much about the caste, the evolution, the aspects of change, the factors of change, the one question that prevails is that is caste system restricted only to Hindu society or Hindu religion? And cannot one find caste in other religions? So here we'll be focusing on the caste among non-Hindus. So does caste actually exist among the non-Hindus? To know that, let's begin with Christianity and caste. Now, if caste exists in Christianity, how? The problem of reconciling changes in religious beliefs with the existing social tradition has dominated the history of Christianity in India, and the Syrian Christians along the Malabar coast trace their origin to the legendary visit of St. Thomas in the early part of 1st century AD. Now, many of the Syrian Christians were of high birth, and after conversion, they continued to be accorded a mid-rank status by the Hindu society that would surrounded them. Now, here, sociologist Susan Vishwanathan, a professor at JNU, in her book, The Christians of Kerala, uh, views that St. Thomas Christians, another name for Syrian Christians, have used their upper caste status through history to remain close to power. And Christians were patrilocal and patrilineal, like the Brahmins, they claim descent from. So, Syrian Christians. Now, saying that Syrian Christians are one of the world's oldest Christian communities who trace their origin to St. Thomas. And it is generally believed that St. Thomas had visited Kerala and converted members of Brahmin families to Christianity. And the Jacobite Church is one of the state's four main Syrian Christian churches. And here, the conversion, or through the conversions, the Brahmins who got converted, they did not give away the caste aspect which was with them. So they took along the caste with their conversion to a new religion. And they started practicing this, upper status, lower status, etc., even there. So, in one way, the conversion aspect of Hindus towards Christianity led to the creation of a system of caste, a system of upper lower status in Christianity. Now, it is evident that when a senior priest stated that he would stop attending the traditional family gatherings held by the members of the church to celebrate their upper caste identity and lineage. That is, a priest from Kerala's Jacobite Syrian Christian Church. Now, in Kerala, some financially sound Syrian Christian families organize annual family meetings, which are attended by prominent priests. And it was in this context that a priest made a statement that these meetings were organized to proclaim the artificially cultivated upper caste identity and lineage, and that he would never be part of such kind of traditions anymore. So it is to be said that the aspect of caste comes along with the conversion. And this priest also further said that so these people believed that their ancestors were Brahmins converted by St. Thomas, and they also even go to the extent of even publishing family history books during the get-togethers. So he says that such baseless upper caste myths have to be busted, and such events should not be highlighted or should not be attended by the prominent priests. So now, caste oppressions among Christians in Kerala led to the formation of many churches meant exclusively for the Dalits, says a historian, Dr. Sanal Mohan, a visiting fellow in the Commonwealth Studies at University of Cambridge. So, a prominent Dalit church is the Pratyaksha Raksha Daiva Sabha, PRDS, commonly known as, was founded in 1909 by the Dalit activist and poet Yohanan, and PRDS was an early movement against caste oppressions. And Dr. Sanal Mohan also says that neither the church nor its members have addressed the problem of caste among Christians in India. And further, Bobby Thomas, the author of Malayalam book Christians: A Handbook for Christianity, agrees that caste discrimination was rampant among Christians in the state, and Christians in Kerala always pretend to be from the upper caste. And he says that that is why the church, that is, the clergy and the lay people, take pride in their mythical Brahminical roots. So, when we move further with the aspect of caste in Christianity, the arrival of Europeans from the 16th century onwards uh, led to a group of people being converted towards Christianity, and thousands of fisher folk got converted by the Portuguese missionaries. And on the other side, there was this person, this priest, Robert A. Nobile, who came to India. He learned Tamil and Sanskrit, and he followed the same lifestyles of the upper caste Hindus in the society. And at the same time, he also tried to disassociate himself from the Portuguese missionaries who were converting the lower caste people. Now, these practices, that is, following the upper caste Hindu lifestyles by the priest, gave a wide acceptance among the Indian upper caste people towards this priest. And this eventually leads to conversion of upper caste people, upper caste Hindus towards Christianity by Robert de Nobile. And it is believed that he converted more than 1 lakh upper caste Hindus into uh, into Christianity, a Christian religion. And thus it could be said that the caste system in Christianity is because of the conversions that which took place from non-Christians towards Christianity. And as we move further, the late part of the 19th century, the Protestant missionaries arrived in India, and they insisted on social reform along with religious conversions. And the result was that most of their converts were from the lowest social classes. So there is a discrimination on the basis of these traditional myths about racial superiority, inferiority, etc. So this caste is not seen in Kerala itself, and it is also similar in other parts of the country. Another example is a report
published by the Tamil Nadu Untouchability Eradication Front on the discriminations by Christians against their Dalit groups. So the report says that the practice of caste system was prevalent in the formation of administrative district headed by parish priests, and it was visible in the construction of separate chapels in the same villages for Dalits and other caste Christians. So, discrimination was also evident in the denial of opportunities for Dalit Christians in the parish administrations, as well as jobs and priesthoods. And further, Anthony Sami Marx, a Dalit activist and writer, says that the church could not find a solution to the caste issue, and Dalit Christians have been facing discrimination at the hands of rich Christians and from mainly the Nadar communities in Tamil Nadu. And further, uh, Bobby Thomas points that the Brahmins began to migrate to Kerala between the 6th and 8th centuries, and they became a dominant force only between 10th and 12th centuries. So the plight of Dalit Christians continued to be same as the Dalits were in traditional Indian society. So without evidences, without no mythical understanding of the caste, of the aspects of superiority and inferiority, the racial categories, etc., there has been a discrimination in Christianity also, basically practiced by the upper caste converts. So many scholars say that the tendency of some Christians to hark back to their Brahminical lineage indicates that Christianity is not free from the plight of the caste. And as an evidence, they point to the plight of those Dalits who converted to Christianity from Hinduism to escape caste oppressions, only to find that things were much same on the either side. So they did not find much relief even after getting converted to a new religion. So that is caste. So that is to say, the caste system that which exists in Christianity is basically because of the higher caste converts and also the lower caste converts, where these higher caste converts carry their own mythical beliefs of superiority and ill treat the Dalit converts or lower caste converts in the community. And then moving on to the caste system in Muslims in India. So the same question, does caste exist in the Muslim religion? So once again, um, the converts come into the scenario. At the same time, Islamic caste and any units of the social stratification that which developed among Muslims in India and Pakistan as a result of the proximity of the Hindu culture, as most of the South Asian Muslims were converted from the Hindu population. Now, despite the egalitarian tenets of Islam, the Muslim converts persisted in their Hindu social habits, and Hindus in turn accommodated the Muslim ruling class by giving it a status of its own. Further, the Muslims in India do not belong to a single ethnic or cultural group. The Arabs, Afghans, Persians, and Turks came to this country one after another, and those Muslims who claim foreign descendants trace their origin from these ethnic groups. But it has to be noted that people of indigenous origins constitute the bulk of the Muslim population in India, and the sections of Indian Muslims who got converted to Islam or who embraced Islam from the indigenous population retained some of their social structure and occupations, and this introduced the counterpart of Hindu caste system into the social structure of Indian Islam. So these customs and religious rites differ in many aspects from the orthodox system prevailing among Muslims of Persia, Arabia, and Egypt. So Indian Muslims had developed their own version of Islam, and it has regional variations and differences also. Now, some of the sociological studies indicate that Indian Muslims are also organized into caste groups, and one of the sociologist or thinker who support this view is Ansari, and he observed four caste divisions among Muslims in Uttar Pradesh. They are Ashraf, Muslim Rajput, clean occupational caste, and unclean castes. So this was one sort of classifications observed by him when he was studying Uttar Pradesh, and further the Sayyids and Sheikhs occupy the highest rank in Muslim community and mostly do the religious duties, while Mughals and Pathans very much resemble the Kshatriyas, and below them are a number of clean occupational groups, which constitute to the bulk of Muslim community in UP and Bihar in particular. So once again, the caste system in the Islam is also a contribution of the converts or mass religious conversions that took place and embracing of people of Hindu religion towards Islam. So Louis Dumont thinks that the caste was consciously adopted by the Muslims in India as a compromise which they had to make in a predominantly Hindu environment. And he analyzes the processes of conflict and accord among the two communities and thinks that the Hindus and Muslims in India entered a sort of tactic and reciprocal compromise. That is, on the one hand, the Hindus existed themselves as political masters who did not recognize the Brahminic values and they did not treat even the most humble Muslims. So, these are the aspects how caste is seen among the non Hindus in Indian society. Further, if we take the South Asian Muslim society, a distinction is also made between the Ashrafs who were supposedly the descendants of the Muslim Arab immigrants and the non Ashrafs who were basically the Hindu converts. So, here the non Ashraf Muslim caste had a three-level status. At the top were the converts from high caste Hindus, mainly Rajputs, and next the artisan caste groups who got converted, and finally the converts from untouchable community.
who continued their traditional occupations even after conversions. So this is the caste among non-Hindus. So even though these religions do not practice caste in its original form in other countries, but when it comes to India, with the assimilation and accommodation taking place, some aspects of cultural diffusions have taken place among religious groups, and some aspects of the traditional Hindu society are also part of these religious communities in India, basically because of the conversions. And in conclusion, it could be said that the traditional Hindu caste system, which was the dominant system in Indian society, has had its influential part in all other communities that have come towards India. So, though the people change their religion, the aspects of caste continues to remain with them, and they tend to practice it no matter which religion they choose. So hence caste exists in all religions that which are part of Indian society in India. And when these people migrate towards other countries, they also carry those aspects with them. So that is how caste has impacted in day-to-day activities and also various other social institutions in the society. Before moving on to the caste in 21st century, let's look at some statistical data and also some videos to get an idea of what exactly caste is doing in 21st century India. So here, incidents of crime and atrocities in 2018 against scheduled caste. So you can see total number of crimes were 42,793, and Uttar Pradesh had reported most number of cases, followed by Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, and Haryana. So this is about 2018 alone. So here is a list of top 10 states that are considered to be worst for living in case if you're Dalit. It's not just with regard to the crimes and atrocities committed against Dalits, but also most of these states also have very low literacy rates for SCs and STs. The data is from 2011 census. So now we are in 2020. So there could be certain variations in these data, and there could also be high prevalence of crime rates. You can just go through these data to understand where the caste stands in the 21st century India. The Indian caste system has been traditionally considered as a rigid system of stratification, and as the rule of change, no system can continue with its rigidity for a longer duration of time or forever, and they are bound to change. And likewise, the caste has also undergone considerable change over the past few decades. And the rigidity and the rule of endogamy, as discussed, have also been declined, and we can see intercaste marriages taking place at a smaller rate, though. And the aspects of hierarchy has also changed manifestly, but the latent functions of hierarchy still remains or still prevails in the country. And at the same time, the caste or caste's hold on occupations has also declined over a period of time. And today, there is a occupational mobility practiced by individuals. So these are certain things which can be observed. But despite that, many of the aspects still remain the same in Indian society, despite various laws prevalent in our country. So the one instance is even in modern India, SCs and STs are seen working as manual scavengers. And despite no the law putting an restriction on manual scavenging, we can find more than 40% of people in these occupations which no other caste would perform. Inequality. Inequality continues to exist in various aspects, though people justify saying that the reservations have brought changes in various aspects of the SCs, STs. In reality, the changes are very little, and those people who benefit from the reservations are also very little. That is, some well off to do groups make use of the reservations, they are better placed, but despite that, more percentage of populations of SC, STs marginalized still suffer from lack of opportunities, and even if opportunities are available, they are not able to meet it because of the high cost of living, high cost of educational institutions, high fees. That's what, and they are also not able to meet various needs because of these extreme high levels of expenditures which they had to bear if at all they had to fulfill those demands or needs of their own. So inequality is also prevalent, and it can also be seen that several caste sentiments also come in terms of appointments, in terms of privileges being granted, etc. Now, problems of SC and STs. So, despite strong laws like SC/ST Prevention of Atrocities Act 1989, Untouchability Act 1955, and various constitutional provisions like Article 15, Article 17, Article 23, though they are existing, they have failed to protect the discriminations taking place against the SCs and STs. Now, these laws have failed to realize that the social reality is completely different, and due to lack of awareness of the people, poor reporting of the cases, lack of support from the police authorities, etc., the SCs, STs suffer a lot. Not just SCs, STs, even all other marginalized sections also suffer. So even the top officials who are Dalits have to face or have faced insults and have been humiliated with caste slurs. And they are also prevented from entering places of worship and those places which are open for public, etc. So these kinds of things still continue. And some cases are there where entire village of SC/ST groups were punished just because few girls belonging to SC/ST community had entered the temple premises. So this happens in 21st century. And also the case of Rohit Vemla, the suicide case, that is also showing that no caste stigmas are also prevalent in the society. Not just that, a doctor from a tribal family, Pal Tadvi's suicide, the last year, that is 2019, just because she was continuously being harassed with casteist slurs by her colleagues, by people whom she was working with, etc. Now, so the caste stigma is strongly attached. Now, this caste stigma also results in not accepting the achievements of people from lower caste and just writing it off by saying that they do it because of the reservations accorded to them, all those things. So these are various serious issues which are prevalent in the 21st century, and also the aspect of honor killing that is very common today, and couples who are married off in intercaste relations get killed. And there are instances where the people have justified these killings. And even in the part of Karnataka, we can see honor killings taking place over the caste, which means that the caste privileges, caste purity, pollution concept has not completely been gone. Like I said, it still has latent functions in Indian society. Now, as we speak this, the recent case of Cisco's caste discrimination also comes into the scenario. Now, the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing filed a lawsuit against Cisco, a multinational technology company, alleging that the company failed to prevent discrimination against a Dalit engineer uh, by two of his Indian origin co-workers. So this, like Dr. Ambedkar said, if Indians travel across, they would carry the caste along with them, and then caste would become a world problem. And it is turning out to be true today because this happens in US. No, a person being prevented or discriminated in job just because of being a Dalit. So continuing with it, here are a few other data with regard to the crimes happening against the Dalit, and the data goes back to 2016. And continuing with it, the COVID-19, it can also be taken as an instance where the hate crimes, the crimes against marginalized Dalits are also increasing. Not just Dalits, even against minorities are also increasing. So that is to say, the concept of social distancing has become an excuse for the practicing or practice of untouchability in Indian society. Now, before coming to that, uh, every 15 minutes, a crime is committed against a Dalit. 6 Dalit women are raped every day, and 56,000 children living in slums die due to malnutrition every year in India. Now, this is one more crisis which the country is going through, but it doesn't get highlighted in the mainstream medias in our society. Now, coming back to the aspect of COVID-19, has set the norm of social distancing. Now, this norm of social distancing has been twisted by certain sections in our society, and upper caste people seem to believe that they have been saving themselves from the deadly viruses for centuries by maintaining a distance from the Dalits. So, this practice of untouchability, which was prevalent in ancient India and even continue to be prevalent now, has been justified by misusing the term social distancing at a time of crisis. To make it clear, there was a case wherein an upper caste patient from Uttar Pradesh, that is COVID-19 patient from Uttar Pradesh, refused to eat the food in isolation centers because it was prepared by a Dalit cook. And such incidents have occurred in different states also. And as I said before, Dr. Payal Tadvi's suicide because of continued caste-related harassment and torture. It also speaks about the mentality of the people and the crisis of caste discriminations taking place in India. Dalits are murdered, beaten, and shunned, but the stories aren't covered by the mainstream media, and minimal reportage leads to the privileged and ignorant people into believing that casteism does not exist in India anymore. And it makes us shocked when we end up saying various incidences that take place. People think that those things are not happening in reality because it is not covered in mainstream medias. And further, the political and economic standing of the Dalits have made them more vulnerable to the plight of the virus. Now, majority of the people, lower caste people, live in rural areas away from essential goods and services, quality health care, and other services. So it also pushes them to a kind of crisis where their lives are led to rot. And it could be seen how India handled the migrant crisis, wherein migrants were on the roads and no one did anything to support them. So the problem here is the privileged Indians often ignore such atrocities taking place in our country, and they go a blind eye against all this. But at the same time, these privileged Indians, oppose or start tweeting against the atrocities happening somewhere else in other part of the world. But they do not have time to support the movements that which take place in India, or they do not have time to stand by its own people or its own population fighting the discrimination or atrocities happening to them. Now that is the privileged Indians. They think it is some sort of a status achievement that when they start supporting the movements outside the world, they improve their position or prestige in front of the world, and they kind of feel shy to support its own people's causes. So this tendency of the privileged Indians, majority of the privileged Indians, is the reason why the kind of discriminations still continue to exist in our society. Now here, the condition of sanitation workers, especially in the hospitals, are even worse. Now, it was announced that all the healthcare and sanitation workers would be provided with an insurance cover of rupees 50 lakh. However, 22% of the Dalit sanitation workers, manual scavengers, and waste pickers do not have the 12-digit ID number which is required to avail this cover. That is the reality. And moreover, the poverty rate, 81% of the STs, 66% of the SCs, and 58% of the OBCs live below the poverty line. And on the other hand, poverty level among the rest of the population is 33%. So this shows that a large section of the Dalit population live in poverty, making most of them more vulnerable to the diseases. Not just this COVID-19, but various other sorts of diseases in different periods of time. So this is about the caste in the 21st century. Now there are many more instances which are happening, which can be debated, which can be discussed to bring it into the limelight, or to bring it to the awareness of the people, because today the mainstream media is not doing that work. So it becomes necessary for us to discuss these things so that people get awareness about the discriminations happening in the country, and just don't go blind with the belief that caste no more exists. Caste exists, caste exists, and it is getting stronger day by day. So until and unless we try to change the system won't change.